Hello and welcome to Flip Video 29. In this video, we're going to talk about the war in Europe and we're going to talk about the heroes of the war. We have a lot to cover, so let's go. First, let's talk about Britain. What's going on there? So Germany called it Operation Sea Lion. The goal, destroy the British Air Force and gain control over the skies over Britain. Okay, so what's unique about World War II is it is the first war that you really see air fighting, okay? You see a lot of bombing, you see a lot of fights in the air, okay? So the Battle of Britain is an air battle that's fought over the British Channel of Great Britain, okay? It began in July 1940. British lost nearly 1,000 planes, and Germans lost more than 1,700 planes. Okay, so Germany bombed both civilian and military targets. Okay, so Germany really kind of wasn't discreet on who they were going to hit. All right, so they hit houses, factories, and churches. Okay, and this continued for months. Okay, so this isn't just, a couple of days of bombing. This is months of bombing. Great Britain suffered so much damage from this bombing campaign that it was incredible. And Britain held on, and Hitler ended up giving up the battle for Britain indefinitely. So after months, Hitler finally realized, I'm never going to get this. But some of the things that you want to look at here is what happened to the people during this battle. Okay, so here at the top in this picture, you see the damage, the destruction that these bombs had. Okay, it's huge. Okay, and so where do the people go? They go underground. And down here, you see them in the subways. Okay, so they would go and they would spend the night in the subways. Parents would send their children away. They would send them to like the countryside for it to be safer. All right, so it was a very dangerous time for Britain. Then you have the war in the Atlantic. Okay, Hitler wanted to cut off supply lines to Europe. All right, so his goal is don't let the American supplies make it to Europe, okay? So his U-boats sunk more than 3,500 merchant vessels and killed tens of thousands of people. In 1943, Allies began using convoys to protect Allied shipping. So they used the convoys in World War I and they bring them back for World War II for the very same reason. So this is kind of a mirror of what you see in World War I. The invention of radar helps Allied ships detect and destroy German U-boats. So this is a big piece of technology that you're going to want to know for the World War II is the invention of radar, because radar really changes the game. They're finally able to see what's underneath of them, and the German subs did not know how to cloak yet. Then there's Stalingrad. Okay, Germany attacked the Soviet Union in June 1941. Hitler pushed deep into the Soviet Union until winter stopped him. Okay, he focused on capturing Stalingrad in the south to obtain control of the Caucasus oil fields. Okay, so Germany needs oil. All right, nobody's trading with Germany, so he needs to have access to oil so that he can run things like, tanks and planes, anything that's gas related. So he really wanted these oil fields, and so that's why he turned on his ally, Soviet Union. Okay, so he fights into the Soviet Union to get those oil fields. The battle is really slow and ferocious. Like literally, it's a block by block battle. Okay, this is where you're seeing some of your World War II games. A lot of them are Stalingrad because it was such an intense, it moved slightly faster than trench warfare, okay? And the Soviets ended up surrounding the Germans. There was a lot more Soviets than there were Germans. And Hitler refused to let them retreat. All right, so he just kept going. Hitler was not going to give up. He finally surrenders on January 31st, 1943. His troops are starving, sick, and frostbitten. And this ended up being a turning point in the war in Europe. So it dashed Hitler's hopes for controlling the whole continent. Here's the difference, okay? This is why Hitler lost. If you look at the picture up at the top, these are the Soviet forces. If you look at the picture at the bottom, there's your Germans. Okay, Soviets, they're prepared for the winter. They know what it's like to be in Russia during the winter. Germans don't. Okay, so they weren't prepared. They didn't have the right clothing. They didn't have enough food because Hitler didn't expect to be fighting through the winter, right? So he just kept pushing his people. So since Hitler loses in Russia, he's got to go south so that he can get oil. And where does he go? North Africa. Okay, fighting began between the British, Italians, and Germans in 1940. Stalin wanted Britain and the U.S. to open up a second front in Europe. Stalin's like, look, we need some help. All right, you need to come help us out. If they captured North Africa, they could move on the European mainland from the south. Okay, so it's kind of like a circle. Hitler goes up and over, and he gets like Poland and all of them, and then he goes down, tries to get Russia, and then goes down to Africa. Okay, so we're kind of getting a circle going on here. All right, so in 1942, Britain won a victory in El Alamein, cutting off the oil fields from Germany. Okay, so Eisenhower put creative General Patton in charge of the War of Africa. Okay, and they surrounded them in May of 1943, and the Germans ended up surrendering. D-Day. Okay, this is the one that everybody knows about. Okay, so Stalin had been working to convince the U.S. and Britain to open a front in France. Okay, Stalin's desperate. He needs help. Okay, and finally, in November of 1943, the Big Three finally agreed to invade France at the Tehran Conference. All right, so it was led by Eisenhower and British General Bernard Montgomery and American General Omar Bradley. Okay, you hear of the Bradley tanks? They're named after this guy. Okay, they needed to land 21 American divisions and 26 British, Canadian, and Polish divisions on a 50-mile stretch of beach in Normandy. Okay, so here is your picture. Here's all the different landings, okay? It is the largest fleet that was ever assembled. There were 4,400 ships and landing crafts. Huge fleet of boats coming in to France. Remember, Germany's got a stronghold in France. They've been there for a long time. So they needed to strike 5 beaches. And those 5 beaches are codenamed Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Okay? They set up a diversion with a fake headquarters across from Calais, France. They included cardboard tanks, useless ships, and fake radio messages. Sound familiar? June 6, 1944 is D-Day. Allies launched the invasion. 11,000 planes bombed German communication and transportation network. Okay, so they didn't start the invasion by landing. They had a diversion. They went and they bombed them first, okay? And the first Allied troops landed at 6:30 a.m. 4 beaches that were landed were lightly opposed. Not a whole lot went on there. But the most famous one is Omaha, and they had the most resistance. Okay, so on the cliffs above the beaches, Germans dug trenches and built pillboxes where heavy artillery could be fired. So what is a pillbox? Okay, it's like a fort built inside the mountain. Okay, so those of you who are used to playing Call of Duty, you go in and you take over these pillboxes. Those of you who are not familiar with them, they're literally a cement bunker built into the mountain with a thin slit that they can shoot out of. Okay, and so they built these where they could put large guns so that they could protect them. All right, the beach is heavily mined. Americans landed into a storm of bullets. Okay, a lot of people lost their lives. But within a month, the reward for that was huge, because within a month, more than 1 million Allied troops landed in Normandy. All right, so this allows troops to come in from the west of Europe to push Germany back. And it took 1 million troops to do that. So now we have the Battle of the Bulge. Germany now faced a 2-front war. All right, the Soviets were steadily pushing the Germans back from the east. Allied troops are advancing from France. All right, in December of 1944, Hitler ordered a counterattack in the Ardennes. Okay, so that's border of France. All right, the Germans, it was a good attack for them. They caught the Allies by surprise, and they created a bulge in the American line and captured several key towns. Okay, this is why it's called the Battle of the Bulge. Okay, so the line was kind of smooth. Well, then Germany is a little successful and it dips. All right. Well, the skies were snowy and it prevented the Allies from using their planes, which had become a big asset in the war. All right. So as long as the skies were covered and they could not attack, Germany could move forward. Well, December 23rd, the clouds cleared and Patton and Eisenhower are able to push back and cripple German reserve troops. Okay, so December 23rd, skies clear, and they lose. So it's the last battle. So here is a map of how things worked. All right. So as they start right here. So here's Germany. All right. They go in and they take Poland, Lithuania, Finland. All right. So they take all of this. All right. And then they come down to take Stalingrad because they want to get the oil fields down here. They're not successful. So they're pushed back, right? And so they go down into Africa to try to get the oil fields down here. They're unsuccessful, so they're pushed back, all right? So we're starting to see this loop shrink, all right? And then they come up, and D-Day invasion is right here in France, and that's when they start getting pushed back, and the Battle of the Bulge is right there. So there's a lot of heroes in this war. Let's talk about some of them. The soldiers, all right? This was a bloody war. Hand-to-hand combat was involved. It's nothing like war today. All right, so 40% of the Congressional Medal of Honor were awarded since 1900. So 40% of the Congressional Medals of Honor awarded since 1900 were given for service in World War II. So a lot of medals. 464 medals were awarded, with 266 given posthumously. That means they were given after death. People had earned them but had died. One of them was Audie Murphy. In January 1945, his squad was attacked by German troops. He ordered his men to withdraw. He climbed into a burning tank and for an hour used the tank's machine gun to hold off the enemy. So very similar to our guy, Alvin York. All right, so he jumps into a tank and holds off the enemy. He gets injured. Okay, but he refuses medical attention and returned to his company and instead organized them for a counterattack. All right, so he holds off the enemy in this burning tank. He gets shot. He managed to get back with his guys and continues on without getting his leg taken care of. Crazy guy. All right, he received the most medals in World War II, including the Medal of Honor, and this is him. All right, we have the Tuskegee Airmen. This is the All-African American Fighting Squadron. All right, so these guys, they have a great story. They were initially not allowed to become pilots. They were considered to be less than, not intelligent enough. But they managed to convince them to have one squadron, and they played a key role in the strategic bombing campaign over Germany. They escorted and protected bombers from enemy planes, okay? So their job was to fly in the smaller fighter planes to protect the big bombers that were gonna cause damage. All right, so more than 1,500 missions, the Tuskegee Airmen did not lose a single bomber. I mean, these guys were super, super successful. Then you have the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. All right, these guys are super unique because they're Japanese. Okay, this is a time when there's a lot of Japanese hatred going on in America. All right, and they faced a lot of discrimination. They were not accepted into the armed forces at first. At first, they're like, dude, these guys are dangerous. Okay, it's like being afraid of the communists. In 1943, the ban lifted and many signed up. These guys are Americans, okay? They may be of Japanese descent, but they have immigrated and they become American. All right, and they formed this combat team. And they fought in Italy, and they were the most decorated unit in American history, all right? They helped counter the idea that Japanese were not American citizens. They went up and they said, hey, we're Americans. Now you've got the 101st Airborne, okay? These are elite paratroopers that were charged with dropping behind enemy lines to destroy bridges and Germany's second line of defense in D-Day, okay? So these are the guys that made the way, prepared things for the Germans to land. All right, they made it safe. So on the night they were to land, fog caused several of the planes to veer off course and drop them in a wide area. All right, so these guys didn't land where they were supposed to land. In the process, they lost 1,500 men as they attempted to regroup. All right, and they were supposed to be reinforced by gliders at dawn, but many never made it. So their reinforcements didn't make it. But by nightfall, they had secured the beach exits, all right? So they didn't give up, they kept going. And then we have the Navajo Code Talkers, and we're gonna talk about these guys in class on Tuesday. I can't wait to see you.